Thanks for staying with us on the news. Now, the Corporate Affairs Commission, the CAC, is set to delist 91,843 companies from its register for failing to file their annual returns with it. In a list published on its website, the Commission presented the names of 91,843 companies for delisting. And this is 2,738 less than the 94,581 names of companies it initially published in August. It is also less than the initial 100,000 companies that CAC said it would remove in an earlier announcement. In July, former Registrar-General and Chief Executive Officer CAC Garba Abubakar revealed that the Commission will delete 100,000 registered companies from its database for failing to file an annual return. And now to further discuss this, I'm now joined by Opeoluwa Taiwo, Executive Director, Africa Bridge Initiative. Thank you so much, Opeoluwa, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Now, Opeoluwa, what are the financial implications of delisting 91,843 companies from the CAC register?
All right, so for Nigeria Corporate Affairs Commission, delisting numerous companies from the existing companies being registered. Don't forget, we have what we call the CAMA, the Company Allied Matters Act as at 2020. And we also have what we call the Company Regulation as at 2021, which empower the CAC to prosecute or delist any entity, any business entity who fail to file annual returns to the CAC. So what are the financial implications? Number one, the companies can no longer transact business with or without any commercial banks in Nigeria anymore from January 1st, 2024. So all the funds in the commercial banks or in the financial institutions will be held. There will be no more availability of transaction for those companies. So the federal government on its part will be losing a lot of returns, a lot of tax. So the government is also losing. So it's not only the companies that are losing. So there's a lot of financial implication on the part of the company. And there are also a lot of financial implication on the part of the federal government of Nigeria. Why were they delisted? Don't forget, these companies are companies that has been registered as far back as 1985. That's close to 38 years ago. So they are not new companies. For every company registered in Nigeria, the first thing you are required to do is to do what we call annual returns to the CAC. Because the CAC is the government agency that onboard every legal business entity in Nigeria. And when you are given the certificate of registration, either venture, limited or incorporated trustee, or limited by guarantee, part of the onions on the part of the organization is that you must file what we call annual returns to CAC. And this is separate from your annual tax to the federal inland revenue. You must file what we call annual returns to the CAC. Why do you file annual returns? The annual returns is for the CAC to understand the capacity of your turnover, of your runnings every year. So if you are not filing returns, there's no way CAC will know that you are still in business. So that is why CAC has been able to publish more than 91,000 names of companies that will be delisted by January 1st, 2024. Don't forget, they still have window period between now and January 1st, 2024 to clear the backlog of their annual returns to be filed immediately to CAC so that they can be back in business transactions in Nigeria.
All right, Opeoluwa, in terms of the GDP now and unemployment rate, of course, how would you say that this delisting would affect Nigeria's economy?
Number one, for the GDP will reduce because the SME have one of the bulk inputs into our GDP. SME is working with turnover. SME is working with liquidity. SME is working with balance sheet. SME is working with various stakeholders. SME is contributing their annual returns into federal inland revenue. And federal revenue is one of the major revenue generation organization for federal government. So what does that mean? In the next 1 year, the revenue generation of the federal government will reduce. So it has a lot of impact on our GDP. But how be it that you are receiving revenue from different organizations does not mean that you will remove your regulatory power from those companies. The revenue will go down. The GDP will be reduced drastically as a result of these companies that will be delisted from the Corporate Affairs Commission.
All right. Now, finally, I would like to know, in terms of transparency, a lot of times we hear things like, they've released the list of the companies that are earmarked for delisting and things like that. And lots of times people check these websites, they don't find anything. They check online, there's no information there. So do you think that the transparency, in terms of the numbers and the posting is accurate?
So for the Corporate Affairs Commission, the first thing you must realize is that when your companies are no longer filing annual returns, there's a portal on the CAC that will read inactive. So that you are still finding their name on the portal of CAC doesn't mean that they're active. There's a column you must check. Is it active or inactive? If you are not filing annual returns, the names of your company will be inactive on the CAC portal. So that means the international organizations, foreign investors, will have to avoid your company. So it has a lot of legal implications. It has a lot of investment implications on the part of the companies. So the CAC is still transparent. So that your name is still on the CAC portal doesn't mean that CAC is not transparent. CAC is still transparent, but it's just that your name will still be there, but it will be inactive. And the reason why CAC is doing that is because it will cost the federal government more money to put you back on track by the time you file your returns. Don't forget, for those names that has been delisted, or that will be delisted by January 1st, 2024, the first thing you have to do is to go back immediately to the Federal High Courts to file your documents, your papers into the Federal High Court. And when this is accepted, then you will have to pay your fine and pay all the outstanding annual returns into CAC accounts. Then your name will now read active on the CAC portal.
All right.
There's still a lot of window, a lot of opportunities for SME Nigeria to correct their wrongs. And this shows that Nigeria is on the right path to monitor our investment, to monitor our revenue. Because without revenue, there's no GDP. Without GDP, there's no budget. And when there's no budget, Nigeria economy is going nowhere. So as for today, the Nigerian economy, we are on the right path, about to take up into another dimension. The narrative has to be changed. The old way of transacting business has to stop.
Right.
We must understand that this is a new narrative for the economy of Nigeria.
Indeed. Executive Director, Africa Bridge Initiative, Opeoluwa Taiwo, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts on this development. Thank you once again.